Welcome to Lakers News Fan Report, your ultimate destination for the freshest updates, breaking developments, and in-depth analysis on our beloved Los Angeles Lakers. Today I'm bringing you something that could completely reshape our championship aspirations, something that's been brewing beneath the surface while most people have been focused on our current win streak. We're sitting at 18 wins and 7 losses. We've climbed to the 3rd seed in the Western Conference, and LeBron is still doing LeBron things at an age that defies logic. But here's the reality that every serious Lakers fan needs to confront. Are we actually good enough to win it all this season? That's the question keeping management up at night. That's the question driving conversations behind closed doors, and that's exactly what I'm going to address today, because there's a potential move on the horizon that could elevate us from playoff contender to legitimate championship favorite. Stay with me through this entire breakdown because what I'm about to reveal will change how you think about our roster construction and our path to Banner 18. Let me start by acknowledging where we are right now as a franchise. The recent victory over the Phoenix Suns was everything we love about Lakers basketball: competitive, dramatic, and ultimately successful. But if we're being honest with ourselves, that game also exposed some of the limitations we're dealing with. We're winning games, absolutely, but are we dominating teams the way championship squads do? Are we imposing our will on opponents consistently, or are we scraping by with close victories that could easily swing the other way? These are uncomfortable questions, but they're necessary if we're serious about competing for a title. The Western Conference is absolutely stacked this season, and standing pat with our current roster might not be enough to navigate through a brutal playoff gauntlet. Our front office understands this reality better than anyone, which is why they're constantly evaluating opportunities to upgrade the roster. Championship windows in the NBA are finite, especially when you have a player of LeBron's caliber who's already defying father time. We can't afford to waste seasons, can't afford to look back with regret, wondering what might have been if we'd been more aggressive. The time to act is now, while we're competitive, while we have assets that other teams value, and while there are impact players available who could genuinely move the needle for us. This isn't about making moves just to make headlines. This is about strategic roster construction, designed to maximize our championship odds. When you're evaluating potential trade targets in today's NBA, you're looking for specific attributes that translate to playoff success. You need versatility. You need two-way ability. You need players who can guard multiple positions and create their own offense when the game slows down in the postseason. Youth and athleticism matter because playoff basketball is played at a different intensity level, where fresh legs and explosive first steps create advantages that older, slower players simply can't match. You also need players who fit culturally, who understand what it means to wear purple and gold, and who are hungry to prove themselves on the biggest stage. Those intangibles are just as important as the statistical production. There is a young player in this league right now who checks every single box I just mentioned. Someone who's been stuck in a frustrating situation despite possessing elite physical tools and tremendous upside. This player is dealing with inconsistent minutes, unclear role definition, and a coaching staff that seems uncertain about how to maximize his talents. Sound familiar? It should, because we've seen this story play out before, where talented young players get buried on deep rosters only to flourish once they're given a clear opportunity elsewhere. The difference between a good player and a great player is often just about situation, about being in the right system with the right coach who believes in you and empowers you to succeed. Let me paint a picture of what our roster needs moving forward. We need another dynamic wing who can create offense, defend at a high level, and take pressure off LeBron and Austin Reeves. We need someone who can attack closeouts, finish above the rim, and provide that explosive athleticism that makes defenses uncomfortable. We need a player who's young enough to be part of our future beyond this season, someone who can grow alongside our core and help us remain competitive even as LeBron eventually transitions to a reduced role. That's a very specific profile, and there aren't many players in the league who fit it perfectly. But there's one name that keeps coming up in my conversations with people around the league, one player whose situation has deteriorated to the point where a trade seems inevitable. The Golden State Warriors are going through an identity crisis right now. They're 13-14, struggling to find consistency and dealing with internal tensions that are becoming more apparent with each passing game. Their head coach has been making some puzzling decisions regarding his rotation, benching young players in crucial moments, and showing a clear preference for veterans even when the results aren't there. This has created friction, this has led to frustration, and this has opened the door for other teams to potentially swoop in and capitalize on Golden State's dysfunction. When a proud franchise like the Warriors starts showing cracks, when talented players become available due to internal issues rather than performance, that's when smart organizations pounce. There's a 22-year-old forward on that Warriors roster who's averaging solid numbers despite inconsistent playing time and unclear role definition. This player has shown flashes of absolute brilliance, games where he looks like a future all-star with his combination of size, athleticism, and skill. He's 6'7", with a 7-foot wingspan. He can guard multiple positions. He's an explosive finisher around the rim, and he's still developing his outside shooting. Those are the building blocks of an elite two-way wing in today's NBA, the exact type of player that championship teams are built around. The problem isn't his talent, it's his situation, and that's where the Lakers could potentially step in and change everything. Imagine our starting lineup with this type of player inserted into the rotation. You'd have LeBron operating as the primary playmaker, Austin Reeves continuing his breakout season as a legitimate secondary creator, and this young wing providing that explosive athleticism and defensive versatility that we've been missing. The spacing would be excellent, the defensive versatility would be elite, and we'd have multiple players capable of creating their own shot in playoff situations when the game slows down. That's the type of roster construction that wins championships. That's the type of lineup that can compete with anyone in the Western Conference. And that's exactly what our front office should be pursuing. Now, let's talk about the reality of making a trade like this happen. You don't acquire impact players without giving up assets, and the Lakers would need to part with some pieces that have contributed to our success this season. Rui Hachimura has been solid for us, providing versatile defense and efficient scoring, but his contract situation creates uncertainty about his long-term future with the organization. He's making $18.2 million this season on an expiring deal, and we haven't extended him yet, which tells you something about how the front office values him relative to other potential moves. That expiring contract becomes incredibly valuable in trade negotiations because it gives other teams financial flexibility while allowing us to upgrade our talent level. Dalton Knecht was our first-round pick, and while we're excited about his potential, his early season struggles have been concerning. His shooting percentages are down. His confidence seems shaky, and he's not getting consistent minutes in our rotation. Sometimes young players need a fresh start, need a different environment where they can develop without the intense pressure that comes with playing in Los Angeles. Trading him now, while he still has value as a recent first-round pick, makes more sense than watching his trade value depreciate further. It's a business decision, and championship organizations make tough business decisions when opportunities present themselves. The financial mechanics of this potential trade work perfectly. The player we're targeting makes $22.5 million this season, which matches up nicely with the combined salaries of Hachimura and Knecht. We'd also need to include draft compensation to make this deal attractive to Golden State, likely a future first-round pick that gives them additional flexibility to rebuild or retool their roster. That's a significant price, absolutely. But when you're trading for a 22-year-old with all-star upside who fits your timeline and your system perfectly, you pay the premium. The alternative is standing pat, hoping our current roster is good enough, and potentially wasting another year of LeBron's prime. Let's talk specifically about what this player would bring to the Lakers that we're currently missing. His athleticism would be immediately apparent, giving us a lob threat and transition finisher who can turn defense into offense in seconds. His defensive versatility would allow us to switch more freely, to match up against the elite wings in the Western Conference, and to create chaos with our length and athleticism. His rebounding would help us control possessions, especially on the offensive glass where second-chance points are crucial in tight playoff games. And his continued development as a shooter and ball handler suggests that his best basketball is still ahead of him, which is exactly what you want when investing significant assets in a young player. The cultural fit is another aspect worth considering. This player has been in a championship environment. He understands what it takes to compete at the highest level, and he's hungry to prove himself after being underutilized in his current situation. Coming to Los Angeles, playing alongside LeBron, learning from one of the greatest players in NBA history, that's an opportunity that would accelerate his development and bring out the best in his game. We've seen this pattern before where young players flourish in Lakers uniforms because of the coaching, the culture, and the championship expectations. There's no reason to think this situation would be any different. From Golden State's perspective, this trade would give them immediate roster depth and financial flexibility. They'd be getting 2 rotation players in Hachimura and Knecht who could contribute right away, plus draft capital that helps them plan for their future beyond the Stephen Curry era. Hachimura's expiring contract gives them optionality in the offseason, while Knecht represents a young shooting prospect who could develop into a valuable piece under their coaching staff. It's the type of return that makes sense for a team that's clearly struggling with their current roster construction and needs to make changes to remain competitive. The coaching dynamics are fascinating to analyze here. Steve Kerr's recent treatment of this young player has been puzzling to observers around the league, benching him in crucial moments, limiting his minutes despite strong performance, sending mixed messages about his role in the rotation. These aren't the actions of a coach who's committed to developing a young star. These are the actions of a coach who's prioritizing short-term results over long-term development. That disconnect creates opportunity for teams like the Lakers, who can offer a clear role, consistent minutes, and a developmental plan that maximizes the player's potential. Our head coach would absolutely love having this type of player in his system. The defensive versatility, the transition scoring, the ability to guard multiple positions and switch across different assignments, these are all traits that fit perfectly with how we want to play. We'd finally have the wing depth to compete with teams like Denver and Phoenix, who have multiple elite perimeter players. We'd have the athleticism to push pace and create easy baskets in transition. We'd have the defensive versatility to employ different schemes and adjust to whatever opponents throw at us. That's the type of roster flexibility that championship teams possess. Let me address the elephant in the room. What would our depth chart look like after this trade? Our starting 5 would feature our primary ball handler, Austin Reeves, who's been absolutely phenomenal this season, LeBron operating as a versatile forward, this new young wing providing athleticism and two-way ability, and our starting center holding down the paint. That's a lineup with incredible balance, with multiple creators, with defensive versatility, and with the shooting to space the floor effectively. Our bench would still have quality depth with veterans who understand their roles and young players continuing to develop. It's a championship-caliber rotation that could compete with anyone in a 7-game series. The timeline for executing this type of trade is important to understand. Deals involving recently signed players typically can't be completed until mid-January due to NBA salary matching rules, which means we're looking at a potential transaction window opening up in just a few weeks. That timing actually works perfectly because it gives us a chance to evaluate our current roster through the first half of the season while positioning ourselves to make a significant upgrade before the playoff push. The trade deadline is always chaotic, with multiple teams making moves simultaneously, and being proactive rather than reactive gives us a competitive advantage in negotiations. The player I'm talking about is Jonathan Kuminga, the 22-year-old forward who's been stuck in an impossible situation with the Golden State Warriors. This is the move that could transform our championship odds. This is the acquisition that addresses our biggest roster needs, and this is the type of aggressive, forward-thinking transaction that championship organizations make when opportunities present themselves. Kuminga represents everything we're looking for in a trade target: youth, athleticism, two-way ability, and massive upside that's been suppressed by his current situation. Bringing him to Los Angeles, giving him a clear role alongside LeBron and AD, that's how you maximize his talents and elevate our championship ceiling. The proposed trade would send Rui Hachimura, Dalton Knecht, and a 2031 first-round pick to Golden State in exchange for Kuminga. That's a significant package, absolutely, but when you're acquiring a player of Kuminga's caliber and potential, you pay the premium. We'd be getting a 22-year-old who's already shown he can contribute in playoff basketball, who has the physical tools to become an elite defender, and who's still developing the offensive skills that will make him a complete player. This isn't a rental. This isn't a short-term fix. This is a long-term investment in a player who fits our championship timeline perfectly. Think about what Kuminga would mean for LeBron's workload management. We could reduce his minutes during the regular season, preserve his body for the playoffs, and still maintain our competitive level because Kuminga can handle significant offensive and defensive responsibilities. Think about the defensive matchups in playoff series against teams like Denver, Phoenix, or Dallas. Kuminga would give us the versatility to throw different looks at their star players, to switch across multiple positions, and to maintain defensive intensity for 48 minutes. Think about the transition opportunities we'd create with his athleticism and finishing ability. These are the details that matter in playoff basketball. These are the advantages that accumulate over a 7-game series. The financial implications are also worth considering. Kuminga is under contract through next season, which gives us time to evaluate the fit and make long-term decisions about his future with the organization. We'd have his bird rights, which means we could exceed the salary cap to re-sign him if the partnership works out as expected. Kuminga's ceiling is significantly higher than Hachimura's. His timeline fits better with our long-term plans, and his skill set addresses more of our roster needs. Drop all your thoughts in the comments below because I read every single one, and I genuinely value your perspectives on these massive roster decisions. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to stay updated on all the latest Lakers news, trade analysis, and insider information, make sure you're subscribed to Lakers News Fan Report and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. I'm bringing you content like this consistently, breaking down the moves that will determine our championship future. Give this video a like if you found it valuable, share it with your fellow Lakers fans, and let's keep this conversation going. We're building towards something special in Los Angeles, and I want you here for every moment of this journey. Let's go, Lakers!